Welcome back to the Unanimous Decision Podcast. I'm your host, D Palm. Follow me on Twitter at DPalm66. We're brought to you, of course, by the good folks at the NCAA Network. Great place you can go for all comics, gaming, politics, television reviews, movie reviews, and now sports. Everything you could ever need. You can follow us on Twitter at the NTR Network. You can follow the show on Twitter at UDPod. While you found the podcast, and I'm glad you found the podcast, let's make sure you do something important with that podcast. Go into whatever your podcatcher device is and make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That way, every week you get UD in your ears, no matter what. And occasionally, I drop those extra episodes, not on the schedule. You don't want to be hunting and pecking for the next one. Make sure you get everyone as they come out. Subscribe. When you subscribe in the iTunes store, leave me a 5-star review. If it's nice, it'll get around the air. If it's mean, it'll probably get around the air too, because I like the 5-star reviews. If something you want to say to the show, haven't had a chance to say it on a review, you can go ahead and email us at udpodcast@gmail.com.
Hey, it's D Palm from Super Tuesday, Character Corners, and of course, the greatest sports podcast in the universe, the Unanimous Decision Podcast. While you're enjoying this great podcast from the MTR Network, make sure you're doing it in the best way possible. That means taking a quick stop over at our friends at Tweaked Audio. Visit them at tweakedaudio.com. Get earbuds, over-the-ear headphones, and of course, the wireless ones that are now all the rage. With them, you can listen to the best audio content in the world. Of course, NCAA Network, premium shows, everything we've got, and more. When you're there and you're checking out, make sure you use the code REVIEWS at checkout to get your 33% off and activate your free lifetime warranty. That's right. We all break our headphones. Let's have them protected. 33% off, reviews at checkout, Tweaked Audio. Now back to this piece of MTR podcasting greatness.
You know what? And it may add a level of professionalism that I don't intend to add to have those pre-recorded drops, but that makes sure that I don't screw it up. Because I'm going to mess up a lot of things while I'm talking to people, and I'd hate for it to be one of our ad partners. We're back again today. We're back. Another huge week in sports. A lot to talk about. Let's get right to it. I'm not alone today. I have one of my oldest friends on the line. He is an avid Ohio State fan, an avid Cleveland Cavaliers fan, and ever since UD Pod started, it's been, so when am I coming on? So when am I coming on? Hey, D-Pon, when am I coming? Hey, how about you not be scared to have me on the podcast? So at a certain point, you have to react. So I got my man Eric on here. You can follow him on Twitter at EricDuncan211 on Twitter. So I send out emails. I say, give me your Skype name and things to plug and Twitter accounts. His things to plug were, and this is an accomplished young man. We're going to talk to him in a second. Things to plug, Ohio State fan. Skype
that's something to be proud of.
Don't have Skype. And I made fun of you already. I'm doing it on the air now. It's 2016, man. Why don't you have Skype? Why didn't you have Skype this morning?
Dude, I don't want to talk about it. But first of all, yeah, I'm a proud Ohio State fan, and I should be, especially with the success that we've had in the past few years, stealing an SEC coach and making him, turning him into an even further legend. So it's a beautiful thing. Why wouldn't I want to talk about this all the time?
Wow, it's gonna be like this the whole time, isn't it? All right, that's fine. That's good. It's important to know what I'm getting into. Before we get into your Ohio Stateness, let's talk about the things you do right now off the internet, actually at work. Where do you ply your trade, man? Where do you work?
Oh man, well, right now I work at the Department of Education,
which still exists as of today.
It still exists. It's crumbling slowly, but it still exists. Still under the Obama administration. Just want to make that clear. And yeah, so I'm still in that wonderful building.
Educator didn't know about Skype. Okay, anyway, I'm not gonna help on that.
I didn't say I didn't know about Skype. I just didn't know how to use it.
So man, you're a Cavs fan, and you've been a Cavs fan, and a very loud and ardent LeBron James defender over the years. How did it feel to bring one home to the land?
While we're just going on my deficiencies, I have to say that when they won, when they finally won, the buzzer sounded, I cried I was on my hands and knees crying. I swear to you, I cried. And I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried. It was just the weight of all the expectations of LeBron, all the pressure that he's had. all the critics, all the defending that I've done, it was just the best moment I've ever felt. It was just amazing.
Like, of all my friends, you've been the one. Like, I'm an objective. Like, yo, LeBron James is great. Like, I'm not one of the haters. I'm very much like objectively by all measures, he's the best small forward of all time. But you're one of those like you've got the facts and the passion.
Oh yeah. Dude, I have it all. I mean, what did this guy. Are we starting on LeBron James? Do we have 40 minutes to talk about him? I just want to make sure.
But
how much time I have to talk about how much he's.
Okay, just as a fan though, what did it mean to have him come back from the years in Miami and to actually deliver on the promise for the championship?
Oh my gosh, it meant everything. I don't think people truly understand unless you're from Cleveland, or even maybe if you're from Chicago. Although I don't know if there's been an athlete that embodies a city and represents the struggles and all of the pain that we felt for the past decades. LeBron winning was everything. I mean, I thought about my family, my uncles who have been just huge Browns, Cavs, Indians fans, and just how amazing it was for him to lead it and to do it the way he did. I mean, it was just perfect to beat the Warriors, to do it with an all-time great performance, historic 3-1 comeback. I mean, I could go on for hours about how significant it was to the city and just the weight that was lifted off of us. So it was amazing. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Have I seen a picture of you and President Obama together?
Listen, I'm not with President Obama. I'm in the same airspace as President Obama, breathing the same air in an event in a room, a small room. So
would you trade that experience?
Basically, yes.
If it was either or, that experience or LeBron winning one for Cleveland?
Well, it's not
even close. Wow, look at the lack of hesitation.
Not even close. To think about it? I mean, it's not even pretending. Why would I do that? I got to be fair to you and the listeners. Listen, it's not even close.
I like that. That's good. It's a level of integrity you're seeing on these airwaves. In the theme of integrity, the NCAA regular season's over. Playoffs are upon us. We're going to talk about the playoff selections in a second. I do want to talk about your last football game that your Ohio State Buckeyes played. And the words being thrown around, epic, legendary. Can we have in the theme of honesty, an honest conversation about how a close game is necessarily a good game?
Okay. Full disclosure here, and while we're maintaining integrity and honesty, I honestly don't know how to look at this.
That's fair.
I mean, listen. So I'm actually really interested to hear what you say about this because as an Ohio State fan, somebody who literally sweats and just every detail of the game, every second of the game, I'm so invested. I don't understand how anybody cannot say that was one of the best games, if not the best game of all time.
Wow!
I can't wait to hear this. Best game of all time, man. I mean, listen, it had everything. It had the close calls. It had the coaches and their personalities showing. It had, the stakes, man. I mean, the stakes. You win and you're basically in the playoffs. You lose, you're out. I mean, everything. The rivalry.
The Texas USC Rose Bowl game is the greatest college football game ever played. First and foremost.
Okay, that's fair.
Secondly,
that's fair.
Look,
that's fair.
And the thing is, I get it. I get being that close to a team. It's different for me because I don't do the fan thing like that, but I do recognize and appreciate it. Like, you look at your quarterback for 15 32, 124, and 30 carries for 125. Like, those are good numbers, but, like, objectively, like, 15 32 isn't a fun game to watch. That's all the time the ball's on the ground.
I hear that. Listen, we can go over the numbers. We can dissect the numbers all we want. But the biggest thing, double overtime, first overtime game in the rivalry ever. The close calls. I mean, you just go to the last minute of the game, the 4-and-1. The play before that, Curtis Samuel running basically 70 yards to get 9 to get us in position to go for the 4th-and-1. The 4th down that they converted at the end of overtime, I mean, that had me sweating. The pass in the back of the end zone. I mean, there are so many signature plays and moments of that game where you look at stats and, I mean, listen, was it sloppy a little bit? It was sloppy at times. But that's just part of a rivalry game.
I don't know why I ever expected you to like pretend to be
emotions that are part of those games.
I don't know why I expected you to pretend
but
to be impartial.
I can't, man. And listen, the crowd and the American people spoke. I mean, this was the highest rated game, it's in years. Highest rate and a 12 o'clock game on a holiday weekend. People are away and supposed to be shopping for Black Friday and all, and they tuned in. I mean, they spoke.
You sound like our president-elect. Your new boss. You sound like your new boss. Touting the ratings. All right. So let's talk about something I think ratings actually matter for. Penn State getting knocked out of the final playoff rankings. The case is made for Penn State. Everyone who wants to make the case for Penn State forgets the Pitt loss, which you can't ignore. Yep. I mean, sorry. Yep. And you got mollywopped by Michigan. Like, those are two losses that matter and they count. I'm of the belief that Ohio State deserves to be in over Penn State. Do you think this is a year? First of all, how do you feel about the Final Four? Is that the four you think?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. I think there are arguments for Penn State. I mean, I can't I get it, but I do think that the four was correct.
Do you have any predictions for the Final Four? Because it looks like, so just for my opinion, I think Bama's going to boat race Washington. I think that's not going to be a fun game. I actually hope they do it second so I can go out and enjoy my New Year's Eve a little bit. Your game, I like you guys. I think I haven't loved what I've seen at Clemson this year. They've been up and down. They have been peaking at the right time. They've been playing better later in the year. So I don't know. To convince me give me the Ohio State case over Clemson.
I mean, look, we have the experience. We have the running game that they have not seen. We have a defense that is opportunistic. I mean, we have our athletes in the secondary are incredible. Our D-line can get after Deshaun Watson. We cause turnovers, and that's the biggest issue with Deshaun Watson this year. So I'm a little worried. I'm a little worried about their D-line.
That's something you really can't ignore. That front four for them is real.
No. The front four is ridiculous. Yeah, and we saw the great epic game against Michigan. We saw some of those offensive line deficiencies exposed. I mean, JT Barrett was sacked 8 times. So I'm a little worried about that. But I feel like, especially with the experiences that we had in the postseason a couple years ago, with 4 weeks basically to prepare, 3 weeks to get them ready. This is a young team. We're getting better. The feel is very similar to 2014. Okay. And so I think we're going to surprise a lot of folks with our defense, with our secondary. I think, it's going to be a good game. I'm looking forward to it, but I just feel like, we'll call some turnovers. We'll have some big moments like we did against Michigan. And I think we'll win by a couple touchdowns.
So let's be real here. And I'm not saying over, so just assume a victory there. Let's hope for a victory. You got the Death Star that is Bama. And I was talking to someone else this week, one of my good friends, and he said, it's amazing how bad the SEC West has slipped. And I said, has it slipped, or is Bama like dating a stripper? Where it kind of messes you up for like 3 weeks afterwards. Like, I feel like a lot of trinkets got stolen, and like maybe your tires got flattened. Like, it ruins you. Like, you're done dating the stripper, but all of a sudden the repercussions are gonna last for a while. Like, Ole Miss didn't look right for 2 more weeks after losing to Bama. Go down the schedule. They just seem to ruin your season. Do you think Ohio State match up? And I don't know. You're a fan, but let's try to be realistic here. This Bama machine is terrifying.
Right. No, I mean, listen, I think we're built like a Bama team. I mean, that's the model. That's the prototype. No, seriously. We have speed on our lines. We have, a secondary, like I said, that has great athletes. We're built like an SEC team. That's what the model was.
They're going to lose. That's the only reason I'm talking about this. I just want.
Listen. I'm not saying that we're shooing for this. It's gonna be a tough game, but I do think if anybody can match up with Bama, I think Clemson is also well positioned with the athletes they have, and I think we are as well. I mean, we have the athletes in the formula to beat an Alabama, and we showed it a couple years ago.
The best thing that happened to Ohio State was you guys grabbed a coach who has inroads in these schools in the South and can get those kids up there. Yep. That's one thing I think people don't get about Harbaugh. He's never going to really – he's going to have to build those inroads, but you guys are already ahead in that race. The speed and the size comes from the South, and that's where you guys have put the inroads. And now, you can say, maybe you guys match up with the Bama. I think the problem, and the thing is, you probably know more about your team's depth than I would, but the problem teams run into when you get to a Bama is what Washington's going to see. The Washington's ones can hang with Bama's ones, but you don't just play ones in these games. And your seconds aren't as good as their seconds. I don't know how they do it. They brainwash these 5-star kids and say, come sit for 3 years.
It's ridiculous. I mean, they have the depth. I get it. Listen, but the same conversation, I'm telling you, we would have had this same conversation if you would have invited me earlier, which, like you said in the intro, I've been plugging this forever. If you would have invited me to this podcast this time 2 years ago, we would have been saying the same thing. You guys don't have the depth. You guys don't have that the Bama on the bench that they have. And the trenches is where we're going to lose the game. I mean, that's what everybody said. We ran over Bama 2 years ago. You can say what you want.
To this man spinning his team into an underdog story. That was an amazing job by you. I tip my cap. And another story that was an underdog story, the coronation last night. The last 2 weeks, I guess, had kind of thrown a pall over what was going to happen. But I don't think there was ever any doubt on this podcast, and certainly not in my mind. Lamar Jackson picks up the Heisman Trophy, 51 total touchdowns this year. The only players in college football history to score 30 passing and 20 rushing in the same season, Cam Newton and Tim Tebow. Pretty high company. Did you see any reason for someone else to be seriously considered for this trophy? Okay.
No, not at all. I mean, in the voting shows, really he fifth highest margin of all time. Come on, it wasn't even close. And the whole loss to Kentucky.
No one likes to see that.
Oh, he lost. Come on, it was horrible. But listen, this guy carried Louisville. I mean, they had never they had a Heisman finalist even. I mean, it's amazing that people thought that they would be even close with anyone else. So I agree.
He's the youngest Heisman winner ever, 19 years, 352 days. The most nervous people I saw in the room of the Heisman was everyone around Johnny Manziel. I would love to have been in the Heisman office when he sent his RSVP yes back. Like, wait, he's coming. What do you mean he's coming? He's coming. He said yes.
How can we? Yeah. Right. Can we find a way to
so no for bar this year? What are we gonna do? I don't know. We'll figure it out. But good for Lamar Jackson. Good for Louisville. Bad for Bobby Petrino, who remains just a reprehensible human being.
Oh goodness.
And
don't even get us started on
that. I can't make it not happen. And speaking of things that happen and are disgusting, Art Briles. So for people who are listening to the show, I harp on this for weeks. Like, the Baylor Art Briles thing is just disgusting. It's gotten worse and worse. And now it's going to come to a head as Art Briles has filed a lawsuit against 3 university regents and a school vice president, claiming that Baylor committed libel and slander by falsely claiming that Briles knew about but failed to report alleged rapes committed by football players. So the lawsuit's out in the wild, and I just think that it's very important to note that it opens with a Bible verse. It opens with Exodus 20:16, thou shalt not. I'm telling you, I'm looking at the top of the filing right now. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor.
I've never heard anything more 2016 in my entire year or life. That is the most 2016 thing I've ever heard in my life. A lawsuit starting with Bible verse. I can't.
Continues part 27. Plaintiff is a private individual. Plaintiff is neither a public official nor a public figure for any purpose. Meanwhile, he's Art bleeping Briles. Like, people know. He's a high school coach? Maybe. Not anymore, Art Briles.
I can't. I can't.
I think it's going to be interesting because now what happened before is that Briles and Baylor were mostly unified in how they were going to handle this. But as more and more came out, Baylor was more and more willing to drag Briles into the mud, to drag Briles' names down with him.
Right.
It apparently has gone too far for Briles and his team, and now we get the lawsuit. Here's where the interesting part's going to happen, because now you're going to get actual things being said. I knew this when. What are you talking about? And we're going to hear stories that have been tied up in lawsuits up until this point, are tied up into agreements. This means the kid gloves are off. They're going to fight in court. And we're going to learn a lot about what happens when small-town football, this is in Waco, Texas, mind you, gets a taste of success and will do anything to keep it. Anything.
It's deplorable. I mean, I think it's – first of all, I'm extremely excited that we're going to hear the details of this. I mean, I think we need to know what's been going on in this. And I hope that there are schools and institutions who are mindful of this, are paying attention to this, and do something substantive policy-wise to make sure that the conditions are not in place for this to happen ever again. But, I mean, it just has Penn State I'm getting PTSD from the whole Penn State thing, and just how, over a course of maybe a year or so, things are just unraveling, and you're hearing something new each day. It's just awful. It's awful.
It really is, and it's been, especially this Baylor case, and it's been interesting to see, because this is one of those things that when something is so obviously wrong, everyone can get on their high horse and take shots at it. But you also see the parallels to other schools. You're like, wait, why don't you? What are your reporting numbers? And so it's easy for us as fans of, not even like just right-minded people, to say that this Baylor thing is wrong. It's harder for us to say, wait a second, how did we cultivate an environment to where it is understood as wrong when it's brought to light, but when it's happening, no one steps in to stop
it. But you know what though, I'm going to push back on you on that. I think we're aware of that, and I think we've seen this over and over and over, and I think it's. I mean, I'm thinking back at even examples of what happened in Notre Dame, or this stuff is happening, and I think it's out here. We're aware of it, and I think folks are saying, okay, this is, first of all, it reeks of just, it's just awful. It's bad for a program. It's bad for the environment at a school.
But the thing is, I think what you're saying is right. We are aware there's a level of awareness, but there's also a level of complicity throughout society, because of the way even just the language we use, the way we treat assault victims, the way we treat people who claim sexual assault. It's people want to bang on sports and bang on Baylor without saying, oh, wait, this is actually indicative of a larger societal problem. And that's what I don't want the conversation to stop at Art Briles is a dirtbag, Baylor's a bunch of dirtbags, look at all these dirtbag things they did, without saying, hey, maybe we as a society shouldn't be in a place where this is even on the realm of acceptability. Because guess what? Art Briles won football games. And that's you've seen. I've covered the CAB stuff on this podcast. I've covered all the supporting of Coach Art Briles. This is easy for us to say that's wrong. Be shamed, Baylor. It's harder for us to say we cultivated an environment where it could get to this point. Because if you win football games, we covered the Indiana coach getting fired last week. They had some of the best records ever, so the abuse of players was going ignored. It took independent investigators to bring it to light and to get him fired. So I think that, yes, I hope it continues to enact substantive change, but I also hope that it doesn't allow us to limit the scope of that change. To say it should stop at the athletic department. Because the Baylor reports, the stuff about Baylor, yes, the football was very important and very prevalent. They were campus-wide lack of reporting of rapes. It was a larger thing. I think we have to make sure that it doesn't stop at sports. Something that should stop at sports is that's not a very good segue. Didn't get there. I tried to make it, didn't make it there. So this week, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals affirmed a dismissal of a lawsuit alleging NCAA limits on athletic compensation violates Fair Labor Standards Act. The lawsuit was filed by some Penn track athletes who claim that the NCAA athletes are employees entitled to minimum wage. The courts disagreed. The court's opinion on the Penn case reads as such: NCAA athletes spend lots of time in their sport and do so without any real expectation of earning an income. The word opinion on the Penn case: NCAA sports is voluntary and student athletic play is not work, at least as the term is used in the FLSA. So basically, they know they're going to get screwed over, so it's their own fault. That's all I heard, right?
Listen, it's exactly what that sounds like. But listen, we could have this conversation, another one for hours. The way that athletes are treated and the way that, they're not compensated for what they do and the revenue that they bring in, that's a problem. But it's such a slippery slope. You know what I mean? It's such a slippery slope to go from, amateurism to ensuring or providing rights, as workers, and all of that comes comes with that.
That left the bar years ago. Amateurism, the only reason we even hold on to the idea of amateurism is to propagate the lie that we shouldn't be playing the kids. It's okay, here's an example. And this is going to actually tie into the cover image for this podcast. I'm using my NCAA royalties check from EA Sports, blacked out, of course, as a cover image, and here's why. Because what happened was there was I always forget the man's name, but he filed the lawsuit against EA Sports when he noticed that His likeness from 1989 was an NCAA basketball game in 2001, and he's still yet to receive compensation. Did it have his name? No.
O'Bannon.
Did it have his name on there? No, but it had his stats, his height, his birthplace. He filed the lawsuit.
Yep.
The O'Bannon lawsuit sat for a while, but eventually you've now noticed there's no NCAA football games or NCAA basketball games out. The reason is EA Sports looked at the case, decided it was cheaper to settle with hundreds of thousands of athletes because they recognized that they had violated using their likeness and compensated them and stopped making the games. That's how if a corporation's that squirrely about this, the NCAA has no leg to stand on.
Oh man, when you put it like that,
they're just like, because the last thing they want to do is stop making the game to license to print money. But they haven't made it since 2006, 2007, because of this. And so when people want to hang, the reasons, and I've told this before, the reason student athlete, the term exists is because a Colorado football player was killed in the 1920s on the field. He died on the field. His widow sued the school for workers for death in service of the school. They invented the term student athlete so they wouldn't have to pay a grieving widow. So
exactly. There was a case we studied from the 70s. It was I think TCU or one of the Texas. And he got injured on the field and wanted to receive workers' comp. And they said no, it's absolutely not.
So
we're not a worker.
And I agree that it is complicated in how to compensate the players, but I think that the right thing being hard to do is an excuse for not doing the right thing. So
listen, I agree with you. If you come up with a system that works for both sides, that is structured well it's beyond the money thing. It's beyond the money aspect. Any job you have benefits. You have certain, rights that come with being a worker, an employee of a company, or being a worker in general. And to provide those, it's a slippery slope, man. I hate to say this, but most of the athletic departments are built on the football teams, right? And the money that's made is built on football and maybe basketball every now and then. But all of these athletes are to receive the same rights. How do you differentiate between the athletes? How do you do that without creating competitive imbalance? That's another big.
So let's not pretend it doesn't exist already. There's a reason why Bama gets these kids and pick small school here. Columbia doesn't. There's already competitive imbalance. Like now we're just making sure. I'd rather have some walls around the competitive imbalance, some rules to work within, as opposed to being the wild, wild west it is now.
No, it's not the wild.
I'll tell you.
That's the point.
I'll tell you stories on the podcast.
Oh goodness. Oh goodness.
All right, so we're almost done with college football because college football is almost done with us. But I did want to take a second to mosey on into BulldogNation.com. They ran a Georgia mailbag. Happy holidays. Here's now a lump of coal. Where Georgia fans wrote in about the questions and status of their program. And I decided to read some of these on the air and share my opinion. The last 2 years, many UGA fans were clamoring for a coaching change because with all this talent, we've fallen short in big games or blown winnable ones. Now, as an area for the past 12 months, the roster has been a built-in excuse for a fairly talented team that just went 7-5. There have been some misses with recruiting, but I don't think the roster became subpar overnight. The question is this. Whatever. He asked the question. It's not important to me. He did bring up a lot of good points, though. And he brought in something that I've been saying since this all started, that while Kirby Smart's going to get the chance to bring in some classes and turn things around and do X, Y, or Z, the AD needs to be very, very careful. Because it's not, people say, Saban went, 7-5 or 6-6 in Bama's first year. Yeah, but they won 3 games the year prior. This is a Georgia team that brought in a brand new coach after winning 10 games. And 7-5, we can make the spins all we want. We can be the smart fans we want to be. But you've got to be honest and be like, I'm not entirely sure what I like. I like what I saw this year. Another mailbag question. In your opinion, do you expect Georgia's offense to be much improved next season or about the same? Is it really a personnel issue and can it be fixed in the offseason? Or are we saying that Chaney was not the answer as we're looking forward to lead the offense? We had a bad line this year, and we're graduating 3 seniors. Nick Chubb better go get his money. Sony Michel better go get his money. I don't think so. I don't think so. And I'm only reading these couple of questions because I want to point out the upheaval that happens when you replace a successful coach. Eric, you guys weren't necessarily, successful. How do you view the Tressel era?
Okay, listen. First of all, let me just put this out here. This is in no way comparable.
No, it's not. No,
Listen, let me. No, and I don't want to be disrespectful because I love you, but this Georgia football, you guys, I mean, I've lived in the enemy territory, and the expectations that you have for Georgia are absurd to me. So I'll compare. I think a better comparison is what's going on with Ohio State basketball right now, and we have a coach, and I'll give you a little background because you're probably are unaware of this, much like many Georgia fans outside of Athens are unaware, or other people are unaware of Georgia because they're irrelevant. So, but Ohio State, we have a coach, that&nbsp. He's been there for 12 years. He wins 20 games every year. We're up there, but we haven't quite turned the corner. There's been a little bit of a downturn over the past couple of years where we didn't make the tournament last year. We lost in the first round the 2 years previous. And there's this sentiment in Columbus. We need a change. We need to change this guy, But before him, we had a coach who would never recruit McDonald's All-Americans because they didn't want to stay. Was just behind the times. We had years and years of mediocrity. So I say this, and I can compare this to the Mark Richt situation. Like you said, changing a coach, as somebody who's established norms and built a program, it's dangerous, and there are big issues in doing that. Now, if there's somebody out there that you can get that is going to galvanize a program like an Urban Meyer, a proven winner who, I had to plug that, but a proven winner who has shown through, years of success that he can turn around a program and galvanize a fan base and make you nationally relevant, yes, go for it. But don't just fire the coach because you think it's time for a change. This is what happens.
It kills you, man, because like the things that you learn about the coaching, they only interviewed Coach Smart.
It's ridiculous. I couldn't believe it.
I honestly think it's a top 10 job in a vacuum in the country.
I think it is too. I disrespect you, but it is.
I'm going to hand the reins of this Fortune 500 company to someone who's never being a defensive coordinator and being a head coach could not be more different. Running a defense is X's and O's. It's football. It's football. Being a head coach of a program like an Ohio State or like a Georgia or like an USC or like an LSU, shout out to Ed Orgeron, we'll see how that goes. You're not just a coach, you're a CEO. You're running a large corporation. It's a different skill set, and I think the unproven coordinator isn't the wisest thing to do at that time. Sure, you got to take a shot sometimes, but sometimes it turns out to be something really great. So not to be a Mark Richt, who was a coordinator at Florida State, who got this call up to Georgia. We're also at the end of a Downs era with the Jim Donna thing, so it was the time to use that we had that flexibility. But sometimes it turns into Lane Kiffin, who might be head coach again at USF by the time this podcast is posted. But you know what he won't do? He won't give the SEC job again, not for a while, because he took the shot, it didn't work out, and it burned him for a while. We'll see how Muschamp ends up in South Carolina, but I've had worries about how his career is going to handle after Florida. I'm worried about Coach Smart because going from 10-3 to 7-5, while not the monumental drop off, you made a bowl, but you cannot say, we're going to need 3 to 4 years to rebuild. Rebuild from what? You were 10-3. They didn't all leave. So I think it's going to be, like you said, a measurement of expectations, because Georgia fans like you and I both know. I used to write for a Georgia site, so I definitely know. It's going to be interesting to see how those expectations are managed. Oregon, Willie Taggart just got that job. Are they going to say, hey, we're Oregon historically, like a third or fourth place Pac-10, Pac-12 team? Or are they going to say, hey, we've been really good for 10 years. Why aren't we that good still? South Carolina.
Right.
Oh, we need someone to come in like Spurrier and keep – hey, do you realize that Coach Spurrier, when he was coaching in South Carolina, is the first time South Carolina won 10 games in World War II? Remember who you are as a fan base when you start building these people up, because inevitably you're going to be disappointed. It's all about measuring and managing how much you were disappointed. Speaking of disappointed, and that's a segue that works. You and I both saw Bomani Jones
I know exactly where you're
talking about our beloved Atlanta Falcons this week. If you haven't seen the clip, it is linked in the show notes. Guys, the Falcons lost last week after Matt Ryan threw an interception on 2-point conversion that went back. We took the lead on the go-ahead touchdown. It's the first time I've seen a go-ahead touchdown result in, for no game clock time, the Falcons taking the lead. They led for 0.0 seconds. It's amazing.
It's the 2016 Atlanta Falcons.
Man, I don't know what to say.
That's what is supposed to happen.
So
You add 2016 and Atlanta Falcons together. That's what you get.
I've been thinking more and more
Hey,
about
that's
it. I think I'm not comfortable because obviously Falcons, but I think we make the playoffs. I think we win the division because our remaining games are easier than Tampa Bay's. I'm not saying that we're a better football team than anyone. It's just our games are easier. That's it. Like we got the Rams today.
Yeah.
We lose to the Rams, we've gone full Atlanta. Like if we lose to the Rams today, just hold on tight, guys. We're going full Atlanta. There's no way to stop it.
This has that 49ers game last year. We're on the road and we lose to Blaine Gabbert. I mean, we can't do that. But it's just all there. I mean, Julio's questionable. We've had some injuries. And how do you recover from a 2-point conversion loss? I'm hopeful. Talk me off the ledge.
I think we make the playoffs. I think we really bad. I think
Okay.
I think we'll go. Well, I'm really excited to bet against this team in the first round. How about that? That said, it wasn't a bad. I understand why you go for 2 there. It makes sense. It makes football coaching sense to go for 2 there.
There's no question it makes sense to go for 2. It doesn't make sense to throw that pass. Throw a fade in the back of the end zone where they intercept it.
From the field. I get why you run 3-step because you don't think Eric Berry is going to make that jump, and he did.
You don't think? No. You don't think Eric
inside of the field? Be myself. Look, I'm just saying.
He had a pick six.
I'm saying be myself. It wouldn't have been an option for my side because that side of the field wasn't on the ball.
Yeah.
What I don't want us to do is overshadow what might be an MVP season out of Matt Ryan. Just numbers wise, the guy's been amazing.
That's true.
And I'm going to continue to say it to myself whatever. So y'all can all, whatever. Like it is what it is. Chiefs are good at football. Falcons apparently worked that Sunday. And it's been kind of the history of the Falcons, and it hurts a lot. And this is kind of what we do. Like this is one of those situations where I was like, as I'm getting married next year, I was like, if I ever have children, would I allow them to be Falcons fans? And I had one of those. Like the question is partially would I let them play football? That's a real question. But a realer question is, do I let my child cheer for these losers who are just destined to hurt you? It's only going to hurt you.
It's a fair question. I mean, in all Atlanta sports. I mean, come on. What have we not seen from the Hawks, Falcons, or Braves?
I don't know the baseball team anymore. Goodness. And the basketball team we're going to talk about in a second because they're the basketball team. They are high mediocre, but which is better because you and I were in high school during I think the 16-win season. When it's just like, well, I'd rather win 50. To be fair, people are like, don't you want to bottom out to your team? No, I've seen the bottom.
That's right. That's the funniest thing about people who don't understand Hawks fans. Don't you? You gotta hate losing in the second round every year.
Really
no,
cool
we don't.
No, we. I get to go to a couple rounds of playoff games.
Yeah, I get to watch a playoff game that I care about.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Hey, this is great. Yeah. Everybody. Oh no, you guys got to tank. What? No, we've been there. Hello, Marvin Williams. We don't want you again.
Man, last week we saw Earl Thomas get hurt in the middle of their game. He tweeted out while in the locker room, "This game has been so good to me, so no regrets. A lot is running through my mind, including retirement. Thanks for all the prayers." So you and I played sports for a long time, and every time I remember because I got hurt real bad against Cornell my junior year in college, and I was on the field. I was like, that may have been my last play. And the people think that you're just playing a sport. Go out there, do your rehab. First of all, people don't realize how fast these football players come back from injuries. Like they had drug there with a broken back, or a punctured lung 2 weeks ago. I'm like, yeah, football players are crazy. First of all, second of all, this is the kind of people thought that he was being melodramatic or blah blah. That's the kind of calculus football players do when they get hurt, particularly when your only commodity is your physicality. And that will later affect your mobility in life. It's hard to say, oh, yeah, it's just another broken leg. I'll be back in 6 months. Part of the J.J. Wattization of athletes where they're like, I'm so gritty and tough. Like, yes, there is an element of marketable savvy to that. There's also an element of, these players having to convince themselves that they can come back from these things.
I mean, this is the Twitter world we live in, I mean, you get behind the curtain a little bit and you get to hear these athletes and how they feel. And like you said, it's fair. I mean, the guy is killing himself
like
every
Luke
week
Kuechly
to
in
get
that-
prepared
Luke
for
Kuechly in
each
that
game.
concussion. Like people were like,
Yeah.
"Oh, he can't be that banged up. He loves football." I'm like, he didn't love it right then. I'll tell you that right now. He does not love football this second.
Not at all. I mean, I'm thinking back to Kobe when he tore his Achilles, and after the game he's crying, and you're like, this guy's the ultimate warrior. Of course he's going to come back, but he understands. I mean, the amount of stress that this takes, and the work that you have to do to get back to this, and all the work that you've done to get to where you're at, and just to have it taken away from you in that moment, it's scary. I don't get this. I don't get why.
Yeah, people want to hate everything.
I get. People just want to hate everything.
Hey, if I had to give you just a random guess, how many career rushing yards do you think that Frank Gore has?
I'm going to go with
Frank Gore has 12,789 rushing yards. He's 8th on the all-time rushing list. How did this happen?
Oh, my goodness.
It's
that
absurd.
Makes no sense.
I was like, they're like, Frank Gore 8th in the rushing list. I go, on the team history rushing list? Like, what are you talking about? They're like, no, NFL's all-time rushing list. I was like, he's now rushed for more yards than Tony Dorsett. He passed.
Can I just... that makes no sense. And shout out to Miami's back.
Here's also
the early 2000s.
Frank Gore's 33 years old. This season, he's passed 7 players on the all-time rushing list. This season, he outrushed Marshall Faulk, Edgerrin James, Marcus Allen, Franco Harris, Thurman Thomas, and Jim Bleepin Brown. What?
I can't. This is 2016.
Like, that's the most absurd stat I've heard all year. And that's including the fact that Russell Westbrook just peeled off his 7th triple-double in a row. Are you watching this?
Oh, my gosh. First of all, you're killing it with the segues. But second of all, you're a master. But Russell, and we talked about this earlier, he's doing it to win. That's it. He's not doing it to inflate his stats. He's not gunning. He's like, I have to win. You're right, exactly. He's not throwing a rebound off the backboard to himself. He has to do this to win. He's dragging Victor Oladipo and rookie from Gonzaga. He's incredible.
Yeah, he's a freak of nature. They've won 6 of their last 7. I think that it's going to be really interesting because last year I always said that Steph won the MVP because Russell Westbrook didn't win the MVP because Steph did something amazing, but Russell was quietly peeling off triple doubles last year. Now he has to win, and they're winning, and so this could be. I thought that I think we did I did the NBA preview with Prather, and we said that we thought Westbrook was going to just go off and just score a bunch. This is a different type of Russell Westbrook who's determined to just do everything. He's 6'3" and grabbing 10 boards a game.
That is, LeBron's not doing that. I mean, LeBron talked about this. It's the being a guard. Well, LeBron's a center, but basically being a guard and getting rebounds is the hardest thing to do. I mean, you can get assistant points at will, but being a guard and getting rebounds. I mean, I think he's the best athlete we've ever seen in the game of basketball. I'm going to say that
he's the player I like watching.
Not even best athlete from a point guard position. Oh, easily.
He's just an explosion.
There's no one better to watch. The way he just wills, he's everywhere. He's always just competing. It's incredible.
So our last topic for the day. For those who've been following it, Phil Jackson said some borderline racist shit about LeBron and his people.
Borderline, sir? Come on. You think Steve Nash called his a posse? Okay, thank you.
But I will say this. I'm not a Phil stan like that. I think Pop's a better coach. Fight me, internet. So Phil said these things about LeBron. LeBron shot back at the media. They asked Phil if there was going to be an issue. He says, nah, we squash it. Not even pointing out that it's his fault that there's any beef and he's not in a position to squash it. The transitive property of beef needs to be explained to Phil Jackson. But then so I'm thinking LeBron's going to go crush him and drop 50. He didn't drop 50 in the Garden, but he also didn't play in the fourth quarter. And they've been kind of talking about the fact that the Cavs starters were playing the water bottle challenge. Now, Eric, you're a fan of LeBron, and I for one, am a fan as well. So when they say that this was disrespectful, I say yes, it was, and good.
I'm 100% with you. You know it. First of all, I'll never say anything bad about LeBron James, so I don't even know why you would even – right, not on the air, not anywhere. So that's first. But second of all, yeah, I love that sentiment. I don't – listen, man, it's the same thing about, you're running up the score or you're, laughing on the court. It's a competition. If you don't like it, do something about it. Stop him. Make it closer. Make it so that he's not out here playing the water bottle challenge because there's nothing else for him to do during this game. He sat there for 30 minutes not doing anything else.
Right. See, and you're also talking to the host who was the asshole of high school wrestling his senior year. Like, I don't know what told on the podcast. So I would win tournaments, and I wouldn't. And so you'd have to go and stand on the medal stand and get your medal, and I wouldn't stand on the stand. I wait for the second place dude to get his medal, and then I'd run and jump and turn and bend over and get my medal in one motion because I was an asshole. So, as someone who has proverbially played the water bottle challenge during a competition, I respect it. I respect the pettiness. I respect the anger. And do you, LeBron? And yeah, the Garden. Everyone's talking about the Garden. The Garden's not that story, baby. I'm sorry. It's a global planet now. The world's smaller. No one's really that hyped about New York. It's not a free agent destination. When's the last one you landed? That's what I thought. Porzingis ain't that good. Don't call him a unicorn. He's better than that nickname. He's good. Like, I think he's got potential to be good. He's not there. And the unicorn nickname has to go. He's better than, like, I don't think he's there yet, but he's definitely better than that damn nickname.
I love the Porzingis thing. I think he's a freak. I mean, but, I agree with the free, Madison Square Garden is not what it used to be.
Guess what?
So
It very rarely was where it used to be. People want to be real about the Knicks. When's the last time they won a chip? I had Knicks fans talking.
When's the last time you've been in the finals?
I had Knicks fans talking to me on the internet before the season because I'd be messing with Knicks fans, and I was just like, they were like, I said, when's the last time you won 50 games? Huh. When's the last time you made the second round of the playoffs? They get real quiet when you ask them like real probing questions like that. All right, but that's all the time we got today, man. Thank you for coming on, Eric. Eric, tell the people where to find you on Twitter, man.
Eric Duncan 211. Find me, tweet at me, retweet my stuff.
Well, we hope you settle into your new position as sub-viceroy of charter schools under the Trump administration. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at UDPod. We're brought to you by the MTR Network. Find us on Twitter at the MTR Network. You can follow me on Twitter at dpalm66. The pod will be up Monday. We'll probably bring you guys. I know one next week. I might get a bonus show in too. See how work and life tend to balance out. Email the show at udpodcast@gmail.com. Leave a 5-star review on iTunes. Make sure you subscribe in the iTunes store. That way I can show people actually listen. And that was your show. And every week off the air, I ask the guests what outro music they want. Sometimes I listen, sometimes I don't. Eric, I'm not giving you a choice. As someone who had locker room near you guys when you played high school basketball, there's one beat that I associate forever with you, and that'll be your outro. This is your show. That was your outro. See you next week.